we're becoming more and more less interested with individual ideologies, and it's hurting brands. Where are we in the world that like you get casted for this part and you're like shitting on the original script? Everyone that's going to medical school wants to inject filler and Botox because they make way more money than being a family doctor.
That makes me actually want to drink Liquid Death when I go out.
The reason why Liquid Death is killing it is because it's founder driven. I don't think it's impressive anymore to just show how much money you can spend on an event. This is like passe trash. It's overdone. It's not cool. This is not marketing news.
What a brand, what a brand, what a brand, what a mighty good brand. Say it again now. What a brand, what a brand, what a brand, what a mighty good brand.
Welcome to another episode of The Art of the Brand. We should start numbering these.
That's what I want. I want to have it. I tried to count them, but there's so many small ones. We got to get a number. We're over 100.
I hope so. That's actually when you genuinely create listeners. Like it's like such a small percentage of podcasts get over
20.
100 episodes.
No, I told you if you want to be in the top 5% of podcasts, just do 20.
Well, because everyone overthinks it.
It's soul crushing to see 8 views on your 8th podcast.
It's so soul crushing.
It's deliberately designed to make you quit.
I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. Remind me to tell you the story about quitting in the military.
Start it off. As long as it's not those desert spider story. Do the quitting one. Yes.
Because we're talking about podcasts and how just to be in the top 5% of podcasts, you just have to film 20 because most people never film more than 20. There are obstacles that make you quit, right? And in the podcast world, getting low engagement early on is just soul crushing because you put so much time to make it good and you have to work through it. But when we're in the military, one of the psychological techniques they would use is you go on these 20 to 30K rucksack marches with very heavy stuff in the heat. And you didn't know where you were in the march or when it was going to end. And the whole time you're carrying these weights and you feel like quitting pretty much after 20 minutes. It's freaking painful. There's blood in your boots. But there's this sergeant just going up and down looking at you saying, do you want to quit? There's a bus right there. You get on that bus, you can go home to mom. Warm food, sleeping, none of this. Just go on the bus. Just go see your mom. And so they would do it the whole time. And then you get close, you feel like you've been doing it for hours. And then you see down the road, I remember this long road. And at the end, you can see these trucks. They were called MLVWs. And they set up with like canteens, food, water. And so as we're walking down the long thing, we see these trucks set up. And we see guys coming out and putting tables up. And you can see water getting put on there and fruit. And so all of a sudden, everybody just picks up the pace. We've lost about 30% of the people on this hike who quit, right? So they're just off the course. And all of a sudden now everybody who is close to quitting just gets a light in their step. It's amazing how physiologically you can change because you see the end. And then we get there, everybody starts taking off their rucksacks and the sergeants are all smiling. I remember looking at them saying, why are they laughing? Because I wasn't paying attention to it. And then they go, what the F are you guys doing? This ain't for you, this is for somebody else. Put the rucksacks back on, we got more to go. And when I talked to them after, and I ran that leadership school later, the most people quit 2 minutes after that because they get themselves up and then they're told that it's not actually yours and then they can't do anything else. Like they just can't recover from it. I thought it was interesting. And we have that in business where you do well, you think you're at the end and you get hit and people quit. And that's the difference between success and failure.
Such a good story.
Don't quit.
Don't quit. I can't help making a statement of, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I live with. It's 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning and he's yelling at me, asking me why I'm being lazy because I'm sleeping in.
I'm not saying lazy, but anyhow.
Man, it's so crazy because what you've been through. When I rehear these stories and I think through the lens of like the interpersonal dynamics and arguments that we have, like I can't understand what you've been through.
But I think a lot of entrepreneurs can, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're fighting a war. You're worried about payroll. You're worried about how you're going to pay your suppliers. You're worried about the next sale.
I live those things.
Right.
What you're saying is a different level of.
Well, resiliency, just the people who succeed are the ones who are resilient in whatever profession they're at. The military helps teach it to you and kind of force feeds you into it quickly. But if 1,000 people start a business, 50 will be successful?
This is where I slightly disagree. I think the level of it actually deserves a different word because there's a tirelessness or a resiliency like to the sale, but it's a different level of like beat you down than what you're saying. Like, this is like, there's a lot of successful people that don't wake up at 5 a.m. Now,
Not that many.
there are. And there's, in fact, there's actually like a growing body of, I mean, obviously it comes down to like the level of what you define success. Because I think for you, what
Oh, these are probably
success is-
people who inherited some money or parents are bankrolling it. And then they're like, I can be successful by getting up at 9 and having a 45-minute latte and then
That's
checking my
still
social.
success.
No, it's not success if you didn't earn it.
It's outward success.
Sure.
Like-
You inherited it. But that's why the next generation ruins wealth.
Yeah.
Because they think that success isn't getting up at 5 in the morning. They think they're entitled to all of the comforts of life, and they think that's success. But success and actual satisfaction doesn't come unless there's suffering.
But I think it even goes back to like the Bill Bryson, the body book, right? Where he talks about we're literally designed to avoid suffering. So to lean into by choice to suffer, is like physiologically going against what we built to do.
But let's take that out, because there's a great quote that says, all success is doing what average people don't do.
Yeah.
So if we're biologically designed to rest because we evolved living in Mesopotamia where there was tons of food, but in today's world where we live in a hyper-competitive society where you want to make something for your family and friends, you have to do what other people don't do, and other people just do what they're biologically designed to do.
I'm in no way saying you're wrong. In fact, I think that your harshness and your like the way that you see things, harshness is the wrong word, is what's missing. It's what's missing within the society, right? Like we don't have enough of these conversations. Like I can't explain to people when they're like, oh, you work 7 days a week and we're up, and it's like, yeah, but it's not hard.
To kind of motivate some of the business owners and the people who want to make it, like, hard times are okay. There's that quote probably everybody knows. Hard times, it uses gender language, but hard times creates good men. Good men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. When you study civilizations, you can see this in all of societies that kind of had a rise and a fall. Always before the fall, you saw a change in the way that people approached doing hard things. I think our society is kind of at a crossroad where we don't do hard things. When you have hard times in your business, just see it as an opportunity to get better, because thinning the herd is always good. Hard times get rid of the fluffy competition. It allows people who have good systems, good brands, good approaches to business to consolidate. And then once you come through the hard times, you're going to level up 2 or 3 levels.
I think that the hard times are actually the best times because you only learn during difficult times. I forgot who or where I learned this from, and I know I've said it a few times on the podcast, but like I really have learned the most from the difficult clients. Like you don't learn from the good clients that are easy to work with and that don't give you edits and like kiss your butt. Like,
but the hard clients actually make you love the good clients.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Because you've kind of experienced.
But it actually, I would even go further as the hard clients, the difficult people, the bad relationships, those bad moments, they actually they better set you up to serve. Like to serve your life, to serve your clients. Like I'm a better partner or vendor to take care of those good people because I've also learned, but based on the hard ones, how to give a great experience, like how to fix. That's the thing I think I love the most about this job and that working in branding and marketing is that it really comes down to human dynamics. And human dynamics are so complicated and so varied because what can seem so clear and so obvious to you, it just is so different to somebody else.
This is a good time to be talking about this because a lot of our clients lately that you help and I coach are struggling with what's going on. And managing expectations is where a lot of people's unhappiness comes from. Like, I think we've made people feel like they have to be happy all the time. And being happy all the time, there's no satisfaction. Like, what's happiness? Winning a medal, right? If you're going to win a gold medal, you're going to have incredible happiness. But prior to that, you're going to have like a large part of suffering, right? Like, but if you're living under this belief that you're not successful unless you're happy all the time, you're going to be perpetually unhappy.
Yeah, you actually said a really great point to me about a month back, and I was feeling a bit down, and truthfully, nothing really bad had happened. It wasn't, solid 10s across the board, and I'm going to paraphrase, and it does disservice to how strong your point was, but you effectively said for you to be happy or to be like successful in your business, let's say you said 50% of the time.
Yeah, it was
I
more
think
of
you
a-
might have said higher. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like you are within the top 1% of society that like ever. Like for you to be not being killed, not be threatened by all of the things, but to just be basically having a bad week or a bad month or a bad quarter is from a percentage
You're
standpoint.
still in the 0.001% of top humans of all time.
And business.
And business. Yeah.
And you were like, to have a great business all the time. He was like, it's just not possible. And two, that's the game. Like the game is to go through the peaks and through the valleys. And you bring up another good point. We're in a weird time. Right, like economically, like consumer behavior across the board, everything is down. And we're not talking as a society about what's going on and how we're feeling because everything is so politically divisive and charged. And the only thing that you can do right now is just focus on building your brand. Like, don't cut
And your
corners
customers.
and your customers. Like, don't be cheap. Don't be just invest in your brand and stop analyzing everything as if it's the last moment because it's really that quantum physics to brand. Like when you're staring at something and you just want your socials to perform, it doesn't perform because you're over obsessed and you're focusing therefore more on the sale, even if you're not trying to, but because you're so hyper obsessed.
Yeah, it's interesting. What our phones and the digital world has allowed us to become hyper focused on short-term circumstances.
Yeah.
Oh, this competitor did this today. Oh, this celebrity did this today. Oh, this is happening. And then our human brains become so focused on the short term, it's overwhelming. But you don't really get a reward for doing the right things, the small things. Like if people say, hey, let's go for a drink and celebrate. You celebrate, you get that instantaneous look. I'm a team player. If you say, no, I don't drink past 9 because I got to work out and I got to be up at 4:30, there's no reward for that in the short term.
Yeah.
There's only a reward 6 months down the road.
Yeah. 12 months, 5 years.
And so as a business person, you have to think like that too. I'm not in the business of getting daily attaboys or attagirls.
Yeah.
I'm in the business of doing the right things so that 12 months down the road, I'm going to thank myself.
So, and I mean, even when I go to my own story, it's funny. I've struggled with female friendships because,
I like how you say.
because they don't like the idea that I'm focusing on my career and I'm not giving them the photo opportunities or the girl trips or the things that make them feel better versus what's not only what's best for my career, but what fits into the schedule that's, pre-booked, sadly. But it was really interesting. A friend of mine, because I worked 3 jobs when I was in university and I really did not have a great party life, which it was to my choosing. I was building Third Eye Insights. I was working in jobs that were going to focus my career, and I was hyper focused because I grew up in a poor family that I was not going to be poor. I was going to be successful, and I used that language because that was the language that I needed to tell myself at that age. I don't speak like that anymore, but to me, my biggest fear at 21 was to go back to Scarborough. And it was interesting. One of the girls that we had hired, her defense for me when I had gotten out of school was like she sacrificed her 20s in order to set herself up for her 30s, because I was really the first one to have a business when I'd come out of school that was like sustaining and had employees. But then it was interesting that started to turn when it was, now I was a status friend, but what I offered them by status, I wasn't allowing them to use to tokenize like them to kind of status up. And it's interesting when you talk about like the sacrifices, like they saw the sacrifices in my 20s to be to celebrate in my 30s versus the sacrifices that we make. I'm not looking to cash out in 6 months or 5 years. Like this is it's a mindset shift you need to undergo for what you want to achieve. And it's not about measuring or getting out that investment. It's about compounding over time.
It's interesting, probably to the founders, it's a good conversation because if you're a marketing professional who supports a founder or you're a founder, there was a quote I had when I was in the military. I was on a base. There was like 300 people there. I was in charge of them. My one buddy I could talk to was the doctor. And I just remember one day having a bad day because of some stuff that went on. And he's like, hey, man, I've been somebody who talks to commanders a lot. He goes, like, leadership is lonely,
Yeah.
right? You can't you have to deal with it all. You have to worry, but you can't show it to your people, right? You internalize it. And I just imagine the founders are out there busy, got a family, got a business, working with substandard contractors half the time, trying to figure out a way out of it. So
Dealing with egos.
that loneliness and sacrifice will help you level up. But every time you level up, you have to improve the circle of people you hang around.
Yeah. And you have to be prepared for what you don't want to hear, but I think that this intro actually perfectly sets up the first two topics I wanted to talk about, because it's difficult to have a conversation around branding without also discussing the larger factors at play. And I really want the first topic to be the Snow White and the Seven Beasts. And what's really interesting is you actually brought this up to me this week in talking about it, and I did a bunch of research on it. And it's really fascinating because you love the like controversial woke topics. Like Phillip literally lives for it. I, on the other hand, I'm like, there has to be like a true so what and a true reason. But what's fascinating is I feel like it's completely disappeared, like I haven't heard anything about it. So I was like, are we ruffling feathers for the sake of it? But Disney has really suppressed this because they don't want anyone to talk about it because of how bad it went. And I don't think enough brands understand how real these repercussions are, because when it's happening at these like catastrophic, huge phases, they're just silencing it. And we're not seeing the outcome of the brands that are falling and dying because of these poor decision making.
I understand where you're tracking with this. This is a case study. And if you're in the marketing and branding world, you have to study successes and failures.
Yes.
But the companies are kind of suppressing failures in the cliched go woke, go broke. And actually, I think a lot of people in the marketing area are trying to hide it even from founders because they don't want it to disrupt what they think is the right way to be. And so you see incompetent people won't pay attention to external factors that would inform your decision making. They're just blind to it so they can keep doing what they're doing. But one after another, big companies and medium-sized companies are dying because of this kind of misalignment, thinking that wokeness will help a business.
And it's such a complicated conversation because I don't agree with the stance that the individuals took in this larger movie. Like, I actually think there's a lot to unpack of like this movie as its own case study to like rip apart and do our thing with it. But separate from that, at its core, when we meet a lot of these small business owners, like they're very good, well-intentioned people. And the problem is that your perspective as an individualized human and as a faceless brand and how that needs to be positioned and exist in the market are sadly two very different things. Because when we're dealing with a downturn economy, when we're dealing with saturation, with competition, with with technological advancements with AI that we've never seen before, if your position isn't crystal clear and simple, it's easy to get lost or to become outdated. And it's really problematic because individuals that are good people can hire marketing teams, and marketing teams can come in and they can talk about their inherent internal biases, but it doesn't track for how the general public buys because we're becoming more and more less interested with individual ideologies, and it's hurting brands.
Well, I just think we're at a point where society has given permission to itself to stop thinking critically, right? And so we kind of live in this world where we can accept things that are just on their face ridiculous because they're what people think we're supposed to think. And your business or your campaign can't be effective if you're not in an environment where you can actively say anything on your mind about its success or failure. And so we see a lot of, Snow White is a perfect example. If anybody would have pitched this to me or any number of intelligent people, we would have said this approach is going to be an absolute failure.
I think the issue with the Disney movie is that niche ideologies can't scale, right? Like there is a large group of people that subscribe to the approach that Snow White tried to take. The problem is that that works within like niche communities. Like if the success benchmark was to like have a rally of 65 people come together to like watch a play, that would do very well. But they spent 250 million on Snow White.
300 billion.
300 billion?
300 million.
Oh, the stat that I got was 250 million. So
Okay.
anyways, 250, 300, and they literally didn't clear 40. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's still made money. It's not scalable because it's too niche. And I think that's a big issue is that like,
Can I jump in? It's storytelling. Like, let me just say that again to all of you out there. It's storytelling. Go and watch the original Snow White again, everybody. It is fantastic storytelling.
it's simple.
No, but it's also powerful themes that inspire a culture.
Yeah.
Right?
Love,
Love, vanity,
yeah.
like the mirror. Like, look at that. That's 1920s, 30s. They're
Yeah.
talking about the vanity mirror.
on the wall. Yeah.
Right?
Who's the fairest
But
on the
then
wall?
the woman, although she's in a traditional kind of female, but she was actually strong. She stood up to bullies.
Yeah.
She ran away. She befriended people who were different than her, the dwarves, right? The hunter sacrificed something for her. Like there are some very powerful storytelling themes that
point.
exist from generation to generation. And then frickin' hammerheads, absolutely, I don't want to say the R word, but stupid human beings get promoted up into something like Disney and destroy a brand, corrupting the essence of good storytelling, thinking that they're just going to take, like when you're talking about a niche, but surface level themes, and then they rework the story and don't understand that's not the same story. It's not compelling. You could make a story with the themes they might want to do, but you don't need to corrupt an old story that's a proven story and then waste and lose $300 million. And that's
Yeah.
what people have to realize is you don't need to corrupt old stories that are amazing. If you want to make a new story and see if it's as good as the old story. It's their worst movie premiere ever after Dumbo.
So, okay, so they made 80s. We had a correction here from Andrew. It's 86.1. It
For
was the
300
worst.
million,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was the worst correction.
launch.
But the sentiment is that the movie tried to cater to progressive ideals, but it ended up pleasing nobody. And what's actually interesting is that one of the core problems is that Gal Gadot is Israeli, so she was pro-Israel, and the co-actor
No, Snow White.
was
The problem child was very...
pro-Palestine. So it
True.
ended up being this geopolitical mess because they both were coming out publicly and then they were in the movie together and then there was no like middle ground. So it made the Jewish community very angry and made the Palestinian community very angry. So it was like, but I think what it boils
who they
down
made
to,
angry, and let's just get down to it, because Forrest Gump said it the best: "Stupid is as stupid does." Right? We need to get back to being able to label things as stupid. Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones, who had the best role for a dwarf in human history, comes out prior to Snow White and says, dwarf actors should not play the dwarfs, or little people, whatever you want, right? So he's made his millions. And the Hollywood people, and a lot of them are like the marketing people, the PR people, the CEOs, who they respond to that. And in the storyline of Snow White, they then cancel having dwarfs. But all of the dwarf acting community were so pumped. This is a lifetime role. They get to act, especially because the dwarves are like grumpy, sleepy, happy. Like it's such a cool method acting role for any actor. But then to have it as a dwarf, it's a lifetime thing. And then frickin' Dinklage comes out and goes, it's prejudicial to portray dwarves as dwarves. And so then they cancel the dwarves and call it the Magic Beasts. And then the Magic Beasts looked like a horror story. They got ripped online and so canceled that, reintroduced the dwarves, but did it through CGI. And if you go watch Snow White, the CGI dwarves look like a Chucky movie. Like they are terrifying, right? And so you have these CGI monsters there. They still kept these beasts in a couple of scenes just to satisfy, I think they met all of the equity boxes in the Magic Beast, but just ruined what was so cool about the dwarves.
But I respect your opinion. And although I align with the way that you think, there's a reality that a lot of the themes that exist within this movie are very alive and present right now within the social zeitgeist. And I think that's they found the prince to be like a stalker. She wanted to be more like a feminist. So it was really about her. There was no prince. There was no love.
They rewrote this prince in, and he did give her a kiss to wake it up. So when you watch the movie, you can see the edits in the movie where they've changed the storyline 5 or 6 times.
Wow.
And so when you watch the movie, you can actually see.
They like brought it back in.
Yeah.
So I was doing all this research, and they're like, yeah, like
Originally she didn't.
Or
Yeah.
whatever. She came out and she's like, the old storyline is boring. It's outdated. It's the prince is a stalker. It's creepy. And I'm like,
No, he kissed her without consent because when you're asleep, you generally don't have consent.
but I feel like this is like, where are we in the world that like you get casted for this part and you're like shitting on the original script?
That's a proven story for 100
what?
years. It's considered one of the best stories of all time. And when you say it's outdated, what is the best-selling category of book in
Books, period.
bookstores?
Yeah, it's
In bookstores. Romance.
Yeah, women's romance.
So to
books
say
with
it's
beach
outdated,
reads.
is to be disassociated with reality because you're in a Twitter sphere. And this is what's hurting companies is people are listening to one area of conversation and missing what motivates their client base. That's why this movie is such a failure. It doesn't speak to anybody.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like these ideologies of the moment that are listened to in a vacuum can't scale. Because
That's a good point.
right,
Yeah,
like, and
yeah.
that's where you need to just move back to classics, like not like classic frameworks, which is literally everything that we're saying about with the social media masterclass. It's like, stop worrying about the Instagram algorithm that was just updated 5 minutes ago, or like the headline of the moment, like chasing these momentary opinions are like they can't scale because they're also not. They're too independent.
Humans care about meaning. And this is what we see in cinema and a lot of storytelling is we're not developing characters anymore. We're trying to just make a formula. We got to have this. We got to have this. We got to speak. We got to speak to this crowd. We got to speak to, and there's no meaning in the movie. Nobody cares.
You know what movies, when they did a really good job of redoing them, was like the 90s and like the early 2000s, where they did like they would do a rewrite. All these movies that came out when I was younger
Yeah, I got you.
were modern interpretations of like Shakespeare plays. So like Sydney White was like a version of Snow White, but it was Amanda Bynes in college. So there's no actual like you kind of found out later it was inspired by the Snow White script. And it was great because she was a soccer player and she it had all the modern themes, but it wasn't rewriting the story. And there was another one, it was a Shakespeare play that they redid.
The one that DiCaprio was in, the Romeo and Juliet story, they did amazing.
But that's still a really close one.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is they gave him a totally different title, but they used the themes from the story so that it was a great story. It was modern, like it checked the boxes, but it's not redoing a classic in a way that suits the opinion of the moment.
You don't redo Snow White to be an ultra feminist, what's her name, AOC. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't work in that context, but you can make a story about an AOC character, if you want to do it, that's compelling, but yeah, you're bang on with that. But I always come back to the business owner who's spending good money. I hate that you're wasting money on marketing stuff that doesn't work because they were told in their corrupted university that these things are true that are not true.
Oh my God, you're using such charge language.
The university system is horrific, and we're teaching people not to think.
But a point that you make that I do like, that's worth touching on, that you touch on that I do like is when you say like it's difficult to place modern ideologies on where people were, where society was at 100, 200, 300 years ago. And I think that's a really astute point because it's easy to judge people for where they were thinking back then. But that also comes with the growth and realization that we needed to work through as a society. And that's why we're redoing the Snow White story that was written 200 or 300 years ago by Brothers Grimm. That's already been kind of adapted to be like a Disney-friendly movie. isn't the best thing to completely redo for the movement of the moment. Instead, take that framework and redo it to a movie that works today.
The reason why this matters to me is in the military, you can't afford non-merit-based performance.
Yeah.
Right? But that creates some of the best teams in the world, right? But I also think as an entrepreneur, you can't afford non-merit-based performance because you have bills to pay. In government, you got a government job, you can go to as many committee meetings as you like. You're never going to get fired. You can afford to have these feelings but for the founders that are out there busting their butt to create $5 million, $10 million companies, you can't afford to make a mistake. Your personal net worth is on the line. So Ben's getting interviewed on Piers Morgan.
Oh, no way.
Right? And Ben and Jerry's, like I used
Has this happened or is it happening?
It's already happened.
Oh, cool.
So I know you
Unilever.
call me old, but when I was in university, the Grateful Dead were still touring.
He's not old. He's older than me.
They were still touring. So I spent a summer and I went to a bunch of Grateful Dead concerts, and I was very much a liberal before I got into the military, and even when I was in the military, I just loved that movement. I loved the joy I saw there, and I loved, and I always loved Ben and Jerry. They have Cherry Garcia flavor. I believe their corporate approach is authentic. They are kind of hippies who believe in being good people and bring you ice cream. Like there's nothing about me going into Ben and Jerry's where I'm like, oh, this is garbage. Why are they like? I like that. It's when corporations adopt fake personas where they care that bothers me because it actually just ruins the wealth of the company.
You nailed it. The problem with this version is that it goes against the original Disney brand. And that is the problem that Disney is currently facing, is it's going against its own version of the story.
Okay, let me give Disney, maybe I can sell Disney a new script. Lady and the Tramp or Lady and Lady. You know what I mean? We just have like, we just make it like one of the dogs is transgender. Like, is that going to work for Lady and the Tramp? It's not going to work for it. Like, we can't Disney was in the business of making amazingly romantic, powerful stories for its audience. If you want to make a new one, do it. But don't corrupt the storyline.
But they've shown that to be successful, right? Like Moana is super successful. The other one that happens in New Orleans was a great story, and they've got like voodoo in it. It's fantastic. But your point, and I'm so glad you brought up the Ben and Jerry's because we were talking about it this week. So for those who don't know, Ben and Jerry's is suing Unilever because effectively they've taken they were like originally two guys from like southern Vermont, I think. Don't quote me on that. I should search it. I think New Hampshire, Vermont.
Or Connecticut.
They moved to New York and they effectively started selling ice cream in the Hamptons. And because they were in kind of where the money was, people loved this homemade ice cream and it grew like a cult following. And it was like out of a truck that they were originally selling the Ben and Jerry's. They are authentically powered by people. They have kind of like those like, for lack of a better term, more of like the hippie roots. And that's why I love what you said is that you're pro when brands authentically are what they are. And that's all that we're asking to be. But the issue when you look at like a Ben and Jerry's, their stance and a Disney stance is Disney only released the first Snow White movie 40 years ago, like 50 years ago.
100 years ago almost.
The first one?
Well, it was 19.
The one that I watched though, when I was a kid. That was the one that was famous.
That animation, 88 years ago.
They were super ahead of the curve.
No, but their animation was amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Same with Bambi, like all of those things. But Snow White was the first major.
1937. Because we used
Just
to have
before
all
World War
those
II.
VHSs at home. And I would watch the Snow White one all the time. However, you remember the story better than me. Cinderella, I can get you on all day, every day. But Snow White, that is crazy. Is Cinderella also from 1937?
Snow White was one of the first.
Wow, that is wicked cool. But okay, so
Wicked cool.
90 years?
Wow.
90
years ago. 90 years ago, that story.
And then this is what they're coming out with again? Gosh, they gotta like Stanley Cup it. They should have just brought it with a handle.
No, they're architects of destruction. No, that's what's driving this new type of woke identity.
It's killing brands.
It's killing brands. They're architects of destruction because these people have never been held accountable for being wrong. Like, who's going to be fired for the decision on Snow White?
We won't know because they're suppressing it.
They'll suppress it, right? And people own shares.
It's not a public beheading, which there is no. You're right. There is no repercussion, and then it's such a so insulated in that industry that like you can make it seem like it was the production heads and not them. You're right. It's a big problem.
If you watch the Piers Morgan interview of Ben and Jerry, or just Ben, because he's been very kind of like, we stole the land, but now there's been a claim on Ben and Jerry's headquarters that they're on land. And so Piers was like, are you going to give your headquarters back to the natives? And it became like a very uncomfortable position in the interview. It's
What did
worth
he say?
watching. He's like, no, we're not going to do that, but we just want to help people. And he just got visibly uncomfortable. It was hilarious.
But what is the core issue with the lawsuit?
I don't know what the Unilever lawsuit is that you're talking.
That's why they've come up.
But what's Unilever?
Unilever is like the huge company that bought them. Unilever is like P and Procter and Gamble. They own everything.
I thought you were talking Univision. I thought maybe the Spanish network was like ruining the names of their ice cream flavors.
Because of Cherry Garcia? Oh, man. So effectively, Unilever was like silencing them being anti-Trump.
Oh,
And they're suing Unilever for not being able to exercise their opinion because they got acquired.
well,
And
don't sell. One way not to be canceled is to own your own business.
yes, true that. True that. All right, let's move on to the next topic. So the next topic is the death of Forever 21. And
Ironic name.
but yes, they're not Forever 21. So for those who don't know, Forever 21 filed their second bankruptcy notice this week. They have over 800 stores, and they are considered the original fast fashion brand. They were started by a Korean couple that pooled together $11,000 to start the business in 1984. And when they started, fast fashion wasn't a novel trend. They just offered prices cheaper. So what's interesting is they actually brought this kind of Korean, like the copy paste concept to first the United States, and then they basically aggressively grew. And during their first bankruptcy, Authentic Brand Groups, the Salters, purchased Forever 21 with Simons and Brookfield. So effectively, the mall landlords and then Authentic Brand Groups, they own everything. They own like Aeropostale, they own Hollister, like they own every single basically mall store. So they all came together and they bought Forever 21 effectively as a way to keep a core anchor tenant because they realized that people, they may not be coming for Forever 21, but Forever 21 is a reason that they'll go shop at the other stores because it's such a big anchor tenant. So they don't want a big anchor tenant to be like going bankrupt because it kind of makes the populace feel like the mall is dying. So the malls basically saved it the first time. And then what they did is they came in and they partnered with Shein because what's killing the fast fashion is that Shein and Temu can just move faster at a better rate to give the consumer what they want for cheaper.
And if you know your sizes.
No, and so they partnered with Shein as a way to save it. But effectively, when Authentic Brand Groups bought the brand, they kind of just like turned it into like a Shein liquidator. Like they lost their brand or their novel concept. So it didn't work.
Well, because you can go online and see more. Like there has to be a reason to go into a store. Like if you can see more online, like on your chair, why would you go into a store?
Well, I think what's really interesting about the North American mall concept is that we're expecting too much of brands that have a short shelf life. Like the average store that's in the mall is truly to undercut prices. Like think about the average, like the majority of malls in America are not built by the hottest store of the moment, right? Like it's kind of built by these like older, cheaper, like Claire's or Colonel's popcorn. Like it's not Suit Supplies. Right? Like it's not the brands that we're like buying from right now. It's these like more traditional retailers. And if those consumers are only looking for price point, you can get it direct from China now, straight to your door. So why would you go and be around 14-year-olds that are just like doing laps around the mall with their sweatpants on? And
the mall model for me, the mall was a gathering place for young people.
yes.
And an excursion for families. And it was developed during a time where having all of these stores together was very convenient for a family, and because there wasn't anywhere else to buy. You could not buy online.
Yes.
So it's either go to a Kmart at a plaza, or you could go to a mall.
Go to the mall.
You can go to a mall that has like a Target attached to it, and there's all these other stores. Like
Sears.
it became a thing. But what I'm thinking in the fast-paced world is that the investment into the brick and mortar, is too much for, as you say, these companies that don't have longevity. Like if you were to ask me, and you may have some points on it, but people need a place to go to still have that social outing. To me, a mall should almost be almost all pop-ups where you could expose people to new brands that they could then go and buy online or create social media moments. So like kids can go to the mall, but if every month the stores are changing with different things, people would go because they want to see what's new, what's going on.
100%. No, that's exactly where I wanted to go is one, malls need a rebrand because they don't have the experience factor. And it's a sad reality. I mean, I tracked this years ago, not happy about it, but being real. I hated going to a mall to get changed out of the clothes that I'm wearing, to like have to try things on, have to wait in line to try things on, hope that they have my size. Like online made it so much better and easier. I could like look at models, assume what I would like, have it shipped directly to my house, try it on in the comfort of my home. And then what I didn't like, there was a return label put in the box and I could send it back. It's not good for the environment, but because it was easier, it's what a lot of people did to be able to consume, especially after COVID, right? Like we were driven to learn how to consume from home. It's hard to go back to an inconvenient model.
People want to make money the way it was made in the past, and then once you get big corporation, like they're not being innovative.
They're not
and
innovating
they're
at
not
all.
using tech. Like to me, yeah, Lululemon had a mirror to work out with. Okay, interesting. I always wondered why you couldn't go into a store and just one time change into like a bodysuit,
And then
be scanned,
try all the things on.
be scanned, and then come out and they show you in the most fabulous outfits in the world, right? Like because you can scan a body and know every measurement now perfectly.
They had a version of this in Clueless, and I've wanted it since the day I saw that.
But how
Oh
come
my
that
gosh.
hasn't, like that should
Wanted
be
her
so,
closet so bad.
but that would be so easy, right? And then but you're taking tech and you're giving people tech they don't have at home so
To
they can
make
have
the
a better
experience.
experience.
Okay, well, what you're saying is like absolutely, but that has not come yet. What we've even seen in Korea was exactly what you're saying. So it's really interesting. The Korean shopping experience is, to me, the only way that the North American malls are going to survive. And it's that they do shorter lease terms. So a huge thing that's killing malls is that the mall owner they're quantifying based on lease terms and lease renewals for value of property. The property owners for the malls and the mall tenants aren't having the same conversation. So we're basically locking in people for these lease
because
terms.
they're
They can't survive.
owned by a real estate investment trust,
Yes.
REITs, and they forecast their sale price, their rate of returns based on long-term leases. So that model of ownership is actually killing the long-term survivability of malls.
Well, and
in
that's
that way.
why it was
That's
so
a good point, actually.
And the same thing with the Bay. Like the Bay has been an iconic Canadian.
Bay,
The
yeah.
Hudson's Bay has been a Canadian iconic retailer since like, I don't know, like 18 something. And they like same thing, they filed for bankruptcy. They were saved because the Cadillac Fair reviews, etc. Like they Nordstrom has died, Target has died in Canada. Like these malls can't be losing these 3-story anchor tenants because it's what drives in business for the remainder of the stores. Like nobody's going to the mall for Colonels, right? Like people are going to the mall for the Nordstrom and then they'll stop in at Bed Bath & Beyond. So like they need to have all the kind of the anchor tenants that bring in the smaller business. But so on one hand, it's the lease terms. The second is that there is no innovation or experience. When the malls were the best is when like Abercrombie was thriving because it was sensory. It stunk like cologne. You had naked men at the front door, like walking you in. We had rainforest cafes in the mall where you would
The other thing
see
is-
animals make noise.
Just coming to mind, but this should be a business. This should be on business TV, but food courts. Prior to Uber Eats, food courts were something that was
Where
very
you got
unique.
to sample food.
Like
Now
there was
it's
a
outdated.
combination of like 20 different offerings all in one spot.
You should sell like tickets so you can get like mini samples for all of them, opposed to like having to stand in line at Manchu Walk. Like it's so outdated.
But that food court now is nobody cares now because they can order anything off of Uber Eats with
unless
more
you're
variety.
14 and you're there with your friends, and you're
That's
just like
it,
no. And that is the core in Korea. So they've got shorter lease terms. They are hyper focused on experience. So it's not filled with inventory. It's filled with technology, things to take photos of, things to do. So like they have a lot of like experiential stations where you can feel things, where you can smell things. They'll have photo booths. They make the mall an experience that's actually worth going to, and their malls are packed, like packed. And the one mall we went into
Because that's where you find the trends.
yes,
You know what I mean? Like there's a draw to go there to see things.
it's also a culture that's like hyper focused around like spending money, but the mall is, I kid you not, 12 stories.
Yeah.
Like this mall, I've never seen anything like it. Like this was not the Eden Center. Like it wasn't a 3-story mall. This was a 12-story, 2-building mall. There's a totally different entrance for the luxury section. There's another one for the regular. They had an aquarium. They have like a zoo. But this is like a normal mall. This was like mall 1 of 17 in Seoul.
It was the biggest one in Seoul, but
No, but it was like, no, all the malls were big.
they weren't. Yeah, okay, fair enough. What they're not doing in North America, it's like people who were in charge of mannequin setup 30 years ago are still doing it.
No, literally.
Like, what is with
They
like,
just made the mannequins body positive, but it's the
like,
same
but
mannequin.
yeah, exactly. That's all they've done. Whereas when you go into the Asian malls, like the design of the storefront
They
is
didn't even
art.
really have mannequins. Yeah, like it was art. It
Yeah,
was like
it was an art installation and all that. So when you went to this destination, the company had invested in making the experience better by almost making it an art gallery of brands.
no, that's such a
That's
great
good
way
word,
of saying
art
it.
gallery of brands.
But the other thing too that I really liked with us being in Korea multiple times, you will go back and the mall looks completely different because the tenants have changed.
Mhm.
So they'll go in for 3 to 6 months to have like a mall store. They'll have like a range of SKUs. People can get to know the brand. They can try the brand. And the brand either continues to exist and does something different, or the brand, they're kind of like stars, you know, like they open, they expand, they create this brand, they sell product, they generate hype, and then they like fold, and then they basically take the investment that they had, and then they'll create another concept, and then that concept will do well, and it will expand, and then it will fall. And
You know what we should do? Hopefully I'm not interrupting you. You know how we're always talking about activations? You know, and in the mall, there just be like one spot where they might have a fashion show or some cheesy. Like, we should create kind of competition in activations in the malls by having these shorter term leases, but make it a center of constant activations trying to outperform each other for attention. You know what I mean? Like almost a buskers kind of
literally
thing.
what Korea does is they're trying to outperform each other for attention. So they all do these, but they're not activations that are grossly expensive. They're just like well executed. So they'll go in for 6 months and it's like strawberry themed. So they have like 3 flavors of lip gloss that are strawberry, and like they'll have a big strawberry there that you can take photos of, and they'll have like strawberry bubbles like coming from the ceiling, and it's a moment. But then what I found really interesting is that everything is very well executed, but their focus isn't to generate increased revenue perpetually forever. And I think that's a relevant conversation to have with the North American model, is that Forever 21 was great when it was great, and then it became an outdated concept. And that's okay, right? Like they should have sold the brand or closed the brand, take that revenue and move into the next model. And that's why people are shitting on Pretty Little Things, because they've rebranded into this more like this fast fashion, but for an old money aesthetic. And people don't realize like you can't stay what you were anymore for the next 15 years when there's something trendy to your concept. Like Forever 21 opened as the first fast fashion retailer in 1984. Fast fashion has changed a hell of a lot in 2025 as we're speaking right now. So it can't be what it was unless it innovates or changes, and it didn't change.
I'm just still on the mall perspective.
gosh.
Like when I'm thinking from a business plan, if I was in charge of a brand, like, do I want a brick and mortar on a 5-year or 10-year lease? But it would be nice if there was kind of like what they did with, and I had thought of this idea about with Uber Eats, that now you have those hidden kitchens where now you're ordering
ghost
off
kitchens.
of, right? That's brilliant, right? But not the same. But as a brand, it should be, okay, I need to rent a space in the right malls for 2 months a year to do like, and then court the customers that I get, the exposure I get there with sales online after, because that's where most sales happen, is online. It's not in the brick and mortar. The brick and mortar is to provide the experience, to bring more people into your tribe, to showcase it. That would be a model that would make more sense to businesses. I'll rent a mall, I'll rent it for 2 months, And then, but nobody wants to get in a 5-10 year lease.
No, and I mean, it's where this has to go, because it's no longer good enough. I actually quite like learning about a brand in person, like touching it, getting that brand experience, getting that in real life feel. But to your credit, like, it's not enough to just become an anchor tenant, to just have your inventory laid out and just hope you're going to survive for the next 10 years. Like, the mall experience has to change, and there's a demand. It's really interesting because one of our clients is a very well-known and big entertainment space. Let's just say it's better than bowling. And I use that statement because there really is a shortage of family approved things to do outside of the home that have changed. And that's kind of the shortage, is that a lot of these things that were big 15 years ago, they really haven't innovated. Like, we don't have a surplus of innovation, and the malls are a right place. Like, it has to change because it's outdated. And if you just had these stores that could rotate, I'd be so much more inclined to go out and spend money I'm not prepared to spend, because your roster of stores is rotating. Like Canada Goose, why do you have a store in the mall in June? Like, you're a winter jacket retailer. And that they make all of their money from November to February because they don't go on sale, and they have to make money during those months to justify during the off months. But
there are summer brands, and there are fall brands, and there are spring brands.
Yeah.
Like that's actually quite smart.
I only go to the mall usually during Christmas. That to me is because it's like they deck up the mall, and it's like I'm buying stuff.
But if the mall was the place to go, kind of like the preseason fashion show, because you had the flexibility to move tenants quickly, you would go to kind of see what are people doing in terms of newness.
If they created a fashion show, a quarterly, that would do so well. Think about if it was like open to the public and they would have lives. So like they would have the product that's coming down the runway for lives, and each of these stores would have like lives.
Yeah.
Live shopping is where it's going. The only reason why we're not doubling down and talking about that right now is TikTok changed the live feature for US individuals. Like, they removed it, and Trump extended the ban, but we don't know what's happening. Canadians have the live, Americans don't.
Gary Vee's still talking about it, but
because it's going to come back. It's like the most effective way, because we're not going back. That's the whole thing. Is like people are just hoping that we're going to go back. Like, we now live in the age of Amazon. We're not going back.
When we're talking about innovation, what interests me, I always want to bring it back to the business owners. People want experience. So whatever you're doing in your business, provide experience. Like, provide experience. It's not just the deliverable of a fungible. Like, you have to provide an experience. But in terms of lack of innovation, when like those arcades, the buskers or whatever, or those places that families can go to have fun playing all those games.
Yeah.
Think of how badly they've innovated. Like the hunting game with the shotgun.
They haven't innovated.
It's the same plastic. Think of how good you could make those environments right now. Like a few places have put VR kind of things in there, but most of the games in there are the same as 50 years ago, 40 years ago. We're not using tech properly to create experiences. It's even worse, like when you think about those summer fairs that come into town. Like for us, it's the Canadian exhibition. It's a big deal. And we went like a few years ago, and you were like, I'm embarrassed to say that not a single one of these games have changed since when I came here the first time when I was 6 years old. And then I kind of thought about it too, and I'm like, okay, so despite me scoffing to you making that comment, they also haven't changed since I was a child. And it's actually interesting. I feel there's like retro where things have a vibe. And then there's things where we get annoyed to resistance to innovation because it wasn't good enough. So it's not like they've innovated and then they brought back for the 100th year like all the old games. Like, that would be cool. Yeah.
But to just roll out the same set of games every single year for over 100 years.
Finding a way to make the prizes cheaper.
Finding a way, like the prizes are shittier. It costs more money to go. You leave with your family. I spent $300 and my kid got a stuffed toy for 15 cents. It's not good enough.
Can I interrupt this Art of the Brand podcast for a legal moment? Just so you're aware, the one reason why I don't go on the rides at amusement parks anywhere in North America is the corporate structure of an amusement park. The smaller ones, Disney is fine, the bigger ones are fine, is that every ride, I bet you didn't know this, is its own corporation. So every ride is its own corporation that gets a percentage of ticket sales. And the maintenance budgets on these places aren't amazing, like the smaller ones, the medium-sized ones, or the traveling ones. They're often populated by people who have records or something like that. But if you get injured on one of those rides, you sue the corporation of that ride.
not
so you
the-
can't get the money. They're designed to be bankrupt.
Oh my
so
God.
for people, this is where like working with some of the trial lawyers around the nation, like it's actually a big problem when you go there. And so you need to know when you go into these amusement parks, do they have general insurance
How do you find
as
that
a
out?
whole? I don't know how you find it out, but I know the bigger ones are fine, but the smaller ones often.
But do you mean like the bigger ones, like the X?
Yeah, like the X, Disney World,
But like the ones that
Busch
show up in your
Gardens,
like
yeah.
in your
The
local.
ones that travel and come back, like they're all individual corporations.
Oh my gosh.
So when you sue them, you might not get anything if their maintenance results in you losing an arm.
or dying.
Yeah,
Because there's always like every few
Yeah.
years a kid dies on the Jimmy Neutron ride or something.
just
you
a little
know?
extra to give to our audience.
Well, that
Yeah,
PSA is
the-
brought to you by the Rogue Lawyer. These brands need to innovate in order to survive. And it's no longer enough to just be complacent. And if you're trying to figure out what is your so what as someone that's smaller, invest in experience. It's never going to bite you in the butt. In fact, actually, before we move on, one of our team members was just in Miami for a bachelorette this last weekend and went to the Alex Cooper event in Miami. And she was like, you got to talk about it today on the podcast because it was so well executed, and they basically were selling tickets for $20 a person, but it was unlimited food, unlimited drinks, tons of swag. So it was not an event they were making money at. They just had to sell tickets for the sake of it. And she was so impressed by how well it was done. And it wasn't for influencers. It was just for like regular people to engage with the brand. And I have my own thoughts on it for where it went, but it just shows you like people are so sick of being ignored, like the average person, because it's been such an influencer, like celebrated and led society that just investing in experience and your people in your tribe, it pays off in ways that might be difficult to measure, because I don't believe that she posts about it, but she and all those girls are lifelong evangelists. They spoke so well to me and probably everyone else, and it will drive sales indirectly that can't be measured.
What I would say to businesses who are being told that they have to pay for influencers to get effect, there's obviously some influencers aren't providing the rate of return anymore. But think of the word influencer and then find influencers in your community or in your target market that aren't influencers, but are people that carry influence. No, I was just thinking, like if you're a local hardware store, right? Like find a good story in the local news, find somebody who's influencing the community and then go do something special for them or invite them in or celebrate it. But think creatively.
Well, listen to this video because you're bang on. So listen to this.
I knew that I had cancer before I was diagnosed because of my Oura ring.
So effectively, this woman finds out that she has cancer before her doctors tell her because of her Oura ring.
I have an Oura ring. I don't have that.
No. I'll tell you what.
You have cancer.
You don't have cancer.
Okay, I'm going to check it right now.
Basically, it was like every night her recovery was like 30.
Yeah.
And like her heart rate was super high. And there was indicators without the Oura ring being like, you've got cancer. It was that her body was going through something.
Yeah.
And this video has done like millions in views. It has over 3,000 comments. It has 7,000 saves, and it's resulted in so much organic business for Oura Ring. And it just shows you that the power of authentic UGC. And it's so many brands are looking to cut corners and to pay for someone to help them sell. And that's what's creating this influencer problem, is that these business owners, it's so funny. It's like we can give them a ton of great ideas. Like, yeah, but where's that easier one where I don't have to do anything and doesn't really cost me a lot of money, but it results in a ton of sales. And that just, it doesn't exist we're too educated, like as a populace and as a society. And that post, which is authentic, low budget, and very well done, resulted in not only a massive spike in sales for Oura Ring, but an intangible increased sentiment. Like think about all those million people. If they all tell 3 people or 4 people about that video, because think about the best thing that you can do. Find out you have cancer before the doctor does. Like that is like for $8 a month, that is like what we're all looking to be able to buy.
Well, it just annoys me. So my Oura ring is out of battery, so now I got to go get charge so I can see if I'm okay. But
Oh gosh.
why?
I left mine at home.
This is just a segue. Like what the Apple Watch and the Aura Ring should be shared with your family doctor electronically, so it can track those measurables and have an AI monitoring them all the time, so that you can, think of how many lives would be saved.
I
if you
disagree
think-
because the problem is that everyone that's going to medical school wants to inject filler and Botox because they make way more money than being a family doctor. I think actually the
I'd
autonomy.
rather have an AI doctor.
Yeah, I'd rather have an AI doctor, your own avatar that you can pay for per month, and all of these different indicators tap into it.
I actually worked with our good friend Robert Barrett, Dr. Rob, and the study they did on doctor avatars is that they're proven to be more accurate in diagnostics. So they diagnose the right ailment faster, like 56% of the time over a family doctor. And they're rated 2 times more empathetic than a human doctor. So engaging with a
I
human.
don't blame them. Like their rosters they're so stacked. There's such a shortage, and we like.
So we
we've
should
got
have
an aging
AI doctors.
population.
We should have AI avatar doctors where this is speaking to our medical records that are electronically stored, and AI is looking at what's happening, is looking at all of our stuff, and then that would be way better and cheaper. That would save the healthcare crisis problem.
I know. I mean, I
And
feel like
prescription.
we're close. We're close to getting there with.
If anybody's building that business out there, we can come and brand that and crush it for you.
I hope they're listening. That'd be great. But to your point on like the influencers, like that is worth it's invaluable what that video is worth for that brand relationship in the customer's mind. And how do you get someone to do that other than offering a great product and letting like the randomness for it impacting people's lives? And like that's the intangible piece that people need to look into. It was interesting. I read, what book was it? Good Energy is what I read. And she talked about how like it is like effectively like professional malpractice to not be tracking your sleep if you're a professional, because if you're operating off of 4 or 5 hours of sleep and you don't know it, you're just hurting yourself long term, and it really costs next to nothing. Like it's really a work expense for you to be like tracking your recovery and how you're doing. And I feel like all of these messages are starting to compound in a way that's helping wearable tech, because it's a good product and it's easy and it checks all those boxes. Now, if your business or your product, it changes people's lives, how can you get it organically in more people's hands so that those stories can manifest and they can be captured and they can be, because that just came out of someone going through the experience, because now she caught her cancer earlier and she got her treatment and she's doing good.
That good energy is an interesting theme, not where you went down, but in the context of your business. Don't judge an influencer just by follower count. Like find good energy, like create good energy, find other people with good energy and bring them into your tribe and try and influence your environment through good energy.
Yeah, I mean, good energy is all that you should be seeking. All right. So I went to this Pilates experience and I left feeling like I have to talk about it with you, because I didn't expect the experience to be as transformative as it was. So we did this Pilates studio in Toronto. It's called LSDR, and the Pilates studio they're doing a great job. Shout out to LSDR. If you're in Toronto, please check out the studio. But it's actually a trend that's happening in Pilates right now in New York, LA, and Vancouver. And this is just the first studio to implement this technology. And effectively, it's not stot Pilates. It's more extreme, but it's not at the solid core level. It's got that more like aggressive reformer Pilates. They've nailed the brand. But the core difference is that they're getting you to wear headphones. So there's no sound outside in the room. So they're not playing music like a traditional workout class. It's all going through your headphones. And what makes it fantastic is that they've paired the instructor's voice with the music so that the experience is very synergistic in your ears. And why that's interesting is because in the typical Pilates experience, they have speakers that are throughout the studio, and then they have a voice that's speaking out on top of it. And it makes the music kind of tinny, kind of echoey. It's not as good of an experience. And for a very minimal investment, like they're they're headphones that you just wipe down at the end of the class and the next person uses them because you're not like hardcore sweating. It's a Pilates workout. You're able to completely transform the experience.
I agree with you because we had a great phrase back in the day. The worst answer to why do we do it this way is because we always did it that way, right? And this happens too often in business. So when you're looking at your business, push the boundaries just because it wasn't done that way, because we all see headphones as private time or in our office. And I think the assumption before was, I'm not going to go to a group class to put headphones on. It defeats the purpose. But that's linear thinking, because when you actually look at the experience of Pilates, especially when I'm going there as a new guy who doesn't want to look like an idiot, my brain is hyper-focused on trying to do things right. And I've experienced many, many times where I'm trying to hear what the instructor is saying, but I got like cool beat music, and then I'm looking around, and it made the experience less good for me because my brain is trying to focus and I can't hear the instructions. You put the headphones on, and I know I'm in a community, I can see them in the mirrors, but I can hear the instruction perfectly, but I still have the beat. Like, it was just a completely different Zen experience that will bring me back. But I bet you a bunch of people just laughed at the idea of putting it on there because they weren't thinking in that second and third order thinking that you're so good at, because I know where you're going next with this, why it's good from a business perspective.
Yes. Well, so when my team is obsessed with the studio. So I went based on their recommendation. Actually, they were obsessed with their socials because we're opening another club, and they were so impressed with their socials that they were using it as inspo. And I had no idea going into it. And when I first saw it, I passed judgment because I thought that they were doing something extra that was unnecessary. However, I loved it in the end because it felt more intimate, but I wasn't alone, right? So what's cool about when you're working out with a group is that you don't quit sooner, you hold that pose longer, like you're getting that kind of that social pressure. But there was an intimacy because you're right, I could hear what she was saying, and the music it really elevated all of it. But what I was thinking more than that is, if and when we're faced again with another pandemic, I'm already primed to the experience being in my headphones that I would be more inclined to purchase the at-home membership or the travel membership because it doesn't deviate in the same way that it does at Barry's, where it's blaring and it's screaming at you and you're running on the treadmill, and I can't get that experience at home. It feels pared down, but it's half there based on how they're doing it now.
No, and it's a great way to add revenue because you can say to your Pilates class, the people who can afford a reformer, that you can now buy a reformer at a profit margin that comes with headphones.
Yeah.
And then you can just do the classes live with the instructors from home. Like, it's beautiful. That's why your thinking is so good as a consultant. Like, I don't think they're offering the selling of the reformers there yet, but this is something that they should consider.
Yes. Well, that's all I was thinking, because I was like, man, like I can get this in the basement. I can like put it on my iPad. The other thing too I loved is it sadly was no longer about the instructor, which I'm there for. I'm saying sadly because I know the instructors, like, they live for it. They love to teach. But like, I actually don't even need an instructor there. Like, they could have an avatar that's like in the mirror on the back, who we could bring in like celebrity voices. It could be like Gwyneth Paltrow's teaching.
Could do a live at 9:00 across all of them because it's here. And you're not busy trying to check out the instructor there because you're trying to hold a freaking pose. That's excruciating.
The way that they're doing it too, which is cool, is they've constructed the room so it's effectively like a hallway. So instead of them, so it's just like one bed each in the room, like how SolidCore does it, right? Yeah. And the instructor is just kind of like walking back in front, but because I'm like looking at myself in the mirror that way, or I'm in the zone, because that's why like the iPad kid thing is such a thing, because you're so engulfed in like how good the sound is for your brain that it puts me at rest. I'm doing something. I'm not looking at the clock. I'm not missing my phone.
I guarantee you could have a camera on each reformer and have an AI looking at it, and you could get live adjustments.
I would much prefer that.
You could get a live adjustment there.
Like, you should be focusing more forward on
your
lunge.
knee is over your ankle here.
Especially in Pilates, right? Because you can get a lot of like knee injuries.
But an AI could do that. That's calibrated, like a video calibration.
It's where it's going. And it's where it should be going. And that is, so find ways that you can add the proverbial headphones to your experience, because what is the cost? $120 a reformer bed? like Max, because they're not branded. They're not like you're not putting on like the Apple headphones. You're putting got good sound, but that's also like your sister showed up, by the way, with this thing that looks just like an Apple Watch, identical to an Apple Watch, acts like an Apple Watch. Like even when you like scroll it, it has like all the little circles. It has like the heart rate. Man, they've even copied the UI UX of it. $30 on Amazon. It connects to her messages. It has all of the same apps. Literally, other than it being the exact same font as an Apple Watch and having the exact same charger, it also stays alive for 3 weeks. We're in such a crazy world that technology is moving so fast that it's not your tech that's proprietary. You have to add something more. To go back to the experience point, is that it's no longer the ability to have, you know, the best tech watch, because like that's pretty easy to knock off at $30.
Yeah, who will be smart in the future?
It's experience.
The person who pays for the $30 one or the...
Well, I mean, if I knew,
Yeah.
you know, like, get that from my mom.
All
Anyways,
right, let's talk hot or not.
hot or not. Oh my gosh. Okay.
We're getting a few sent from our listeners too every week, which is really, we appreciate that.
Yeah, send them
That's
in,
hilarious.
guys. Okay, we're gonna start with my favorite. Kegs for Pregs, the Kylie, Kelsey, and Liquid Death collaboration. I think it's a total hot. I'm obsessed with it. Do you not agree?
I think that should win a marketing award. No, and there's so many layers to why that's spectacular. First of all, we talked about before, you're taking the piss out of yourself.
Yes.
So you're making an entertaining, hasn't been done before, pregnant people in a bar, right? Also the kind of proverbial person who wants to judge you, about to call you like, how dare you, da 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 da. I love that they've branded it to look like either an energy drink or a beer. Like to me, that's so much cooler than a crappy non-alcoholic beer commercial, right? Like that Liquid Death.
Peroni Ferrari from last week.
Yeah. That makes me actually want to drink Liquid Death when I go out. Like literally, if I go to a club and I don't want to drink any, like, or I'm not drinking, like that's what I want to drink. I hope they have it in sparkling, because the can looks cool. The can looks cool. The vibe they just did is cool. And they weren't afraid to target a very visible niche market that has been ostracized from the element of fun. And it's beautiful.
I don't think they're targeting a niche audience.
No.
I think that the biggest trend right now is not drinking,
Yeah.
right? With all these coffee clubs and these coffee parties popping up and think about like most people, to get someone's attention to the end is very rare.
Yeah.
So if you show kegs for pregs, it instantly tells your brain they're not drinking, right? So if you just saw a clip of it, it's a very simple takeaway of Liquid Death is water. They're playing on pregnant women
Liquid
drink.
Death.
Yes.
Like the name, like everything is counterintuitive, but it's beautiful branding. I'd love to know what the marketing company is behind this. Who
Liquid
owns
Death
it?
kills it.
Liquid Death's campaigns are spearheaded by founder and CEO Mike Cesario, a former creative director who's known for his unique and often irreverent approach to marketing, meaning he's not scared to insult or upset people, aiming to disrupt the beverage industry with a focus on humor and a rebellious brand. He was the former creative director of Netflix.
Wow.
And left. So that's a founder-driven marketing campaign. And that's why I wanted to know who is doing it, because an agency wouldn't do that, right? An agency is populated by business graduates who are all drinking the Kool-Aid and citing the message. Like I could tell and that's why it's so good. So as a founder, don't restrict yourself. Like irreverent marketing, disruptive marketing. So good. That's one of the best ones I've seen. I loved it.
No, you're right. That's actually a super important core takeaway, is that the reason why Liquid Death is killing it is because it's founder driven.
Yeah.
And that's what founders want to outsource. They get focused on the things that they're not the best at. And it's what kills their brand's potential, is you have to be involved in the creative direction. You can like outsource the production of it. You can outsource like the talent hiring. You can get additional support, but you have to be involved. Is Jack me? Is Zach Moo? I got like blasted on the internet for it.
Oh, because you called it Jack Me.
But we.
But I always made fun of it because I thought it sounded like fuck me, like Jack Me, like we say that fuck me, like Jack Me.
I actually think that this is an intentional move as part of these brands that get into the cult status
yeah.
is that they make the name different than the way that you would phonetically pronounce it.
So it can be a point of conversation.
So it can be a point of conversation.
You get corrected.
You get corrected. You're not in the in crowd. You seem like you're lesser than. And because it started with true French words like Hermes, right? Like that was hard for an English speaking person to come up with. But
Hermes.
but they've now taken it, or Versace, they've now taken it to the next level. It's same thing. There's another brand you would pronounce it as Loewe, like Loewe, but they're pronouncing it as Loewe. And
Just deliberately make your
they're
name.
deliberately fucking it up. They're just like, oh, you think it's this, you peasant?
Yeah.
It's this. And but
But it's not us who deliberately made you make it wrong.
yeah, but I actually think it's an intentional
It's
like
funny.
that.
It'll wear off, that kind of thing, but it does work. It does work in some cases.
I think the reason why it works though is because the average has entered into the luxury conversation for the first time. Because you can buy things off of AliExpress and Temu, you can have an opinion on things that you were once restricted to. So these French names were originally restricted to the upper European class, and then it was to those people who could travel to Europe. So it became exotic to come back with a Louis Vuitton. Because you're from New York, and that shows you that you had culture and class. But now, because the average person can buy into it, it's actually a way to help that person that wouldn't otherwise be a consumer of theirs, feel like they're a part of that tribe.
Interesting.
So the question is,
Jacquemus.
do I pronounce it correctly for their hot or not for this week on the hot or not? So Jacquemus did a collaboration with Air France. So they're basically for passengers on Air France. They've come up with like branded pajamas that are going to be like on the seats. And Jacquemus is the brand of kind of the moment. So it's kind of an interesting collaboration as a way to make Air France passengers, or like to drive brand value for the Air France passengers. I think this is a super hot move. I love that they did this.
It's an easy collab. It doesn't show really much creativity. Like they can use the colors, but air travel, like you get that kit when you're in first class, right? But what do I associate with what's in that kit? It's convenient, but it's throwaway.
Here's where I disagree. When I get on the plane and I see that Air Canada's done a collaboration with Tumi, I want it to be great.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've earned a brand to care about how much money I've spent in first class. And I want that package to be great. It's always cotton freaking swabs, the worst socks, and mouthwash. What I love about this is that makes me brand loyal to Air France, and it makes me actually want to keep the shirt that's on my chair from that Jacquemus, because I feel like this is where we're talking about like this isn't a brand
if they only
gifting
have
influencers.
that shirt, the only way to get that shirt is through first class.
Yes.
Then it'd be amazing.
Yeah, of
because
course.
people would wear it. No, because but if they're
We're not
selling
giving
it in their
back to the
store.
bus, Phillip.
No, I'm saying if I can buy it on the online store, the same shirt, because
No, this is for the Air France travel passengers.
I'm saying like if you can only get it there, then then you can kind of wear it and people are like, you're kind of subtly bragging, right? I was on first
But
class.
that's what I love about it is I actually think it's a really cool move because it drives pride for Air France and for being a French brand, because that's what the European brands did very well. Like you talk about this quite a lot with me. Like what was so cool when you were in the army is that the different fashion designers designed the different military uniforms, and it's like such a sense of pride to connect the designer with its country of origin.
France wasn't known for its fighting capability, but they had the best uniforms designed by Jean-Paul Gaultier. Like literally,
They look sharp.
They look great in those tight-fitting combat pants that you couldn't crawl into a window through, but your butt looked good. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, the Four Seasons robes.
Yeah.
That some people may or may not take. You know what I
And
mean?
you may or may not get charged for it.
That look good, but I was just saying, like, it's good if it's a signaler that you're in there and it's high level. It's just a question of how much are you going to pay. But the problem is these clothes, their costs are so low compared to what they sell for.
Oh, yeah.
That if they had kind of a confidentiality agreement to give them to those passengers at the cost, people would think they're getting something worth $500. It really only cost them $20. and would treat it as so.
Yeah.
And it'd be a good branding ambassador.
I completely agree. Let's move on to the next one. So the next one this went crazy on the internet. So The Ordinary, which is actually originally a Canadian company, they sell high quality skincare at a reasonable margin. So they're famous for having what we would know as like cheap skincare because they're just not selling it at like skincare beauty has astronomical margins. So you can get the same lactic acid as, let's say, Drunk Elephant, and it's $7.75 instead of $70. So the stunt that they did this week is that they're actually selling eggs at the price point that they should be sold at $3.37. And they've completely branded all of the eggs as The Ordinary eggs. And they only did this in New York City as a way to say that people shouldn't be paying these astronomically inflated prices for ordinary goods. And it did crazy well online, other than the vegans. The vegans are pissed off that The Ordinary picked the eggs to price, but it's an Ordinary staple. What are your thoughts?
Vegans don't matter anymore. Like the trend against vegans, like health is now in eating
Animal-based,
in properly treated animals, right? Just based on, so their influence time is gone, I'm sorry to say. I get what they're saying. You know, I think things like eggs should probably cost more if they're raised well. I think people get used to a price point because there was factory farms that allowed them to be cheap. And then once you start treating animals properly, it gets expensive. People are like, oh, I don't want to spend more for eggs. But so there's that argument there. Whereas in beauty products, you can break down like what makes something $100. The ingredients in that beauty product is not worth $100.
No, it's their
worth
store on
35 cents,
Madison
right? Like
Ave,
when you actually look at the ingredients, the money might come from the research. So we want to be able to protect people's ability to do the research. But what happens is China looks at any successful beauty product, puts it in a lab, copies it, and puts it out there. How do you protect that value? But I think in terms of capturing a zeitgeist in New York, that's a brilliant move. You know, I would not have thought of eggs, but they seem to be in tune with that New York
customer,
what's going on there. And so it probably had a very good
response.
Although I think their brand is like we're as good as the others. So like it seems like they're going the other way and saying eggs shouldn't be expensive. Or maybe they should be, but their products are. I don't get that connection. Whereas why they're $10 and somebody's $100, but eggs should stay at $3.99. I'm giving it a nod because their branding position is we provide you with high quality things that
at the price it should cost.
At the price that it is to us, right? Now, it doesn't factor
at the
in
price it should cost. That's their approach, is that
if they did the research, but if their beauty products are essentially the same as other people who had labs, you know what I mean, to develop the best formulas, because it takes a while to launch a product.
Their stance isn't that they've ripped off the Drunk Elephant formula. Like there's a reality.
How do they get their formula then?
Because their formulas aren't based on. So what a lot of these skincare companies are doing is they're trying to create these like elixirs or potions. So it's hyaluronic acid and lactic acid with B12 vitamins and collagen. Like people are branding this concept of like this skin cream is the difference for looking youthful, versus the reality is that dermatologists say, okay, you should have a vitamin C oil, you should have lactic acid, and you should have a salicylic acid to clean your skin. Like it really is more simple compounds of what your skin needs in order for it to breathe and for it to age gracefully. So it's less about La Mer's secret 12 ingredient formula. It's that what your skin really needs is these 4 compounds.
No, if they're just 4 ingredients and simple, that's fine. But there is a thing in business where it takes a while to make a new product,
but
and you got to invest in it.
They're not claiming like that's. I get what you're saying. Like the La Mer, their cream is famous because they have 12 patented ingredients and the technology in which they do it, and they go to the bottom of the ocean to scrape.
No, but I agree with you. Like olive oil, vitamin C, and that's enough for skin.
And that's what they're saying. It's called The Ordinary. So it's not designed to be these like complex. It's like 2.5% salicylic acid. Like that's all that it is. So it's basically the compounds, and I think it's brilliant because it connects with the pain point that the current customer is feeling. It connects in a pain point in you don't need beauty products, you want beauty products. You need to eat. So when you're realizing the struggles of your groceries and how much you can, like how they're positioning of like how much you should pay, you're more inclined to buy their $10 face wash, right? Because then you're creating that association of being connected to them for what they're more largely representing and saying. I think it's a really smart move.
I just know with eggs, like you can get cheap eggs, but they're chickens who live miserable lives who are fed hormones
That's a different
and
argument,
antibiotics.
though.
No, but this is something that a brand has to be aware, because if you're putting that on the cheapest eggs where they're infusing with hormones,
That's a good point.
antibiotics,
Yeah.
not doing that, their brand is that they're using pure ingredients as they're meant to be. So if they put it on pasture raised or free range, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like,
Okay. I really like where your brain is at, but it's not this customer. I would say the ordinary is more that it's positioned to be more that product line for when you first start adulting, which is very much that like New York City time in your life. Your parents are supplementing your rent, you're struggling, but you're not really struggling.
It's kind of like a blender in university.
Yes.
To me, it's like the magic
It's
book.
exactly it. But I just think that what you're saying is that's actually would be a great counter campaign that like another more naturally derived brand should be, is like you just basically made the shittiest eggs at an affordable price point versus like not all eggs are created equally. So they should do like a counter campaign where like what was that brand that we saw with all the like Farmer's Daughter or whatever that had those crazy billboards and like beef fat on your face is
tallow,
hot.
yeah.
Like that brand should do a counter campaign with like
Yeah.
organic eggs
Yeah.
at $6.
Yeah.
Still cheaper for the organic eggs, but that their products aren't created equally, because I don't know that they're known for having like organically
Purest,
derived,
olive oil.
no,
It's just functional.
olive oil isn't on their shelf. I'm saying salicylic acid, lactic acid, olive oil.
Lactic acid is what happens when you burn.
No, but lactic acid is very good for your skin.
Is
Good,
it?
Yeah, I put it on your skin all the time. Good genes. That's the like the squirts. That is lactic acid is very good for your skin. But anyways, that is ordinary eggs. All right. So Summer Fridays did an event launch in LA for their eye patches, and it looks like an extremely expensive, well-constructed event with everything from custom cloud cocktail to cloud dessert to photo booth to literally you name it. Like probably you got a light blue Aston Martin on the way out, fancy. And I've got an unpopular opinion on this. I'm bored with this stuff. To me, it's very much a not. I don't think it's impressive anymore to just show how much money you can spend on an event in an age where people are deciding to buy your product as the treat because everyone is struggling and is like hardly getting by, and to blow $275,000 or $500,000 on one night event with the most famous influencers, to me, is out of touch.
Again, it's linear thinking at the higher levels of branding and marketing. It's like, oh, this is what people like. And then the people doing it want to do it because it makes them feel cool. But in an age where there's a reality showing every type of excess, the eyeballs that you're looking for have already seen this like 1,000 times. They've watched every show that showed
Opulence.
like martinis being poured and a party. Like in the old days, that was something people didn't see a lot, didn't get access, or could only see on a couple shows, Lifestyle, The Rich and Famous or something. But today, everybody's feed is showing this. So how does this set you apart? It doesn't.
Well, I got an actually really interesting perspective from Anthony DeLuca, which that episode's going to be great. Make sure you tune into that. He said the reason why the brands do this is because when the event is done to this caliber, they can get, as I said, the 10 biggest influencers there, and they know that they're going to post about it, and they don't have to pay them for those posts because it's a good enough photo moment for them
to promote themselves.
So it ends up being the same cost or cheaper because they're not paying the influencers for them to post about it. And I said, interesting take. And I think that the consumer populace, we need to know this because we shouldn't be celebrating brands for, again, like cutting more corners at the expense of really it's like capitalist greed. Like at this point, like this isn't, think about Summer Fridays. Like they've become such a cult loved brand. And I feel like they're getting to that tipping point where they're too big and they're out of touch. And doing these kinds of events because you don't want to pay 10 influencers to wear your eye patches, which I don't think you need. I think it's way cooler when I see these like average girls wearing the patches and like filming it and like showing getting ready with it. Like that to me is way more impactful. Like for eye patches, you don't need to have a 500,000 party. Like they're eye patches.
No, like
Give them to the people.
okay, first of all, trying to like seduce influencers to come to your party, you now become part of the ego-driven negativity of society, right? If your eye patches work and make people feel great, like if you want to do a party like that, I think you get way more impact if you just brought cool people from small high schools around America, flew them in and allowed them to experience something they hadn't seen before. They'll go back and post about it. You know, you can have an eye patch party where everybody wears an eye patch at these parties, but like you could show people who haven't been there enjoying it, but just having influencers clink glasses and feel special, like that doesn't appeal to anyone.
Honestly, it's kind of the like let them eat
cringe,
cake.
yeah.
Like it's kind of going back to the Versailles. Like you're right. Like I felt that way when I watched. I'm like, this is a fantastic venue. Sure, like you're spending a ton of money, but like I don't care anymore seeing 20 of the most famous influencers of the moment. And you're right. Like I think what would be way cooler is if they did a contest and 20 girls that did the greatest impact in their communities could enter into a contest and they were chosen and they could sit next to each one of these influencers, you know, almost like that proverbial like soccer game where they come out with the kids, you know, like, and that is like,
they get a glow up out of it.
There's something to it. It looks good on the internet. And it's interesting when I put this up yesterday for Hot or Not, people were like, oh, it's hot. But I think they're going off of the baseline of like, it's hot because they spent money. It's not hot because it propels the brand forward.
And it's people who may like it, but not engage with the brand in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
So it's not, you don't get a metric that actually helps the business.
All right, I got this one. This one is, I really look forward to getting your opinion. So the UK division of McDonald's has rebranded their Happy Meals to become Unhealthy Mental Health Awareness Week. So they've now taken the smile off of the box. They're no longer calling them Happy Meals. They're calling them the meal. And inside each of the box, they're giving children different yellow stickers that represent emotion so that they can stick on their boxes whether they feel sad or confused or agnostic or happy. And the whole push is that because more and more kids 48% of kids in the UK feel the pressure to be happy all the time. So McDonald's is trying to alleviate the feeling of feeling happy with this campaign push. What are your thoughts?
We're going to get a little philosophical here.
Oh.
So it's hot and it's
Let's
not.
release the beast.
It's hot and not.
Oh, interesting.
It's hot because it's playing to the frailties of parents, right? Because the Happy Meal, when it came out, it was you took your kids someplace and they were happy to go out to
It was a big deal.
McDonald's, right? There was a playground there and you celebrated in your suburban family. Today's families, a lot of them are one-child families, which when you have a one-child family, there becomes an obsession over the child that actually can kind of ruin the child.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
Right? And when you're helicoptering them, they're not able to make their own mistakes and explain. And so it's hot in that it'll probably get sales because we've been building kids who are treated like the adults, right? Like really, if aliens looked at us, they would think these small people are controlling adults, by dictating what they eat. So, but why it's not hot is in today's society, people want to have choice because it makes them feel powerful.
Yeah.
But meaningless choice is an imprisonment. Like if you want to distract the populace, just give them tons of meaningless choice. Their ego and psychology will think that they have control over their life, but really they're just a prison of all of these meaningless choices. And so it's actually doing a disservice to a child to have them come there and be able to put what they want in it just so they can see a reaction of their parents. Like it's bad for children because they're still feeding them garbage, right? So I'm putting essentially close to poison into their bloodstream, but I'm allowing them to decide how they feel, right? Whereas kids don't need to be allowed to decide how they feel. Kids need to be able to play, scrape a knee, get better, explore, make mistakes, but it's making it look like it's a parenting thing, and it's really hurting the children, but it's good for business.
Wow, lots to unpack there. Initially, I went straight to not, but you have changed my perspective. I went straight to not because it is too academic. Like it's something that will be discussed in university classrooms because it's complicated enough to propel a conversation and it gets people talking. The problem is the people who are talking and discussing aren't the customer. My second point to it is McDonald's is on a massive decline, and I don't feel like they're prepared to face the core issue in that we don't want to eat, like it's not as novel to eat shit food anymore as it was years ago, fast, right? Like we'd rather have a more like a Chipotle option than a McDonald's Happy Meal option for at the level in which they saw success in sales. However, when you did say, when you gave me the both answers, where my brain went to is McDonald's, I do feel is in a difficult position for how much they've done with the Ronald McDonald House. And I do think it's complicated their message and their internal perspective as a brand because they've done so much for sick children in a positive way. And that there's this looming unhappiness within children for being sick as now part of the brand. And they're trying to make it almost a non-attached part of the brand because a child choosing to have emotion versus getting leukemia at 6 are very much not the same thing. But it enters into the conversation because behind the scenes, McDonald's is pushing so much of and they've done a really good job for sick children.
No, you got a good point there. The Ronald McDonald House and the Happy Meal was they wanted to bring kids happiness.
Yes.
Right?
They wanted to change kids.
And from the perspective of demographics, a family that was on an average budget or a below average budget could take their kid to McDonald's and get a good playground when you're in an urban area.
And help kids.
And
because every portion of the Happy Meal went to the kids.
And so they got a little prize in it, and it was happy in that day. It would be something special for the kids that they liked. So that was the brand, is they brought happiness to kids. Now they're empowering kids deciding how they feel, right? They're almost perpetuating the early mental illness diagnoses that are coming in children more and more from a prescription perspective.
Yes, but the problem is it's not their problem inherently, but it's almost a problem they're inheriting because they're so focused on helping sick children. And there's this larger issue of mental illness within young children that it complicates where the product and the brand once was.
If they're finding trends, because Ronald McDonald helped kids with, terminal cancer.
Yes, I know.
Right? So if somebody said, hey, look, there's a trend that kids are being diagnosed with issues earlier, we used to help them there. Why don't we just, kind of perpetuate this, I think, wrongful diagnosis of illness in children early? Like, let's just get ahead of that curve and say, come into McDonald's, eat your, you know what I mean? And then go take your prescriptions.
Okay.
But I just want to talk about,
okay.
I think it attracts, if it's done well, the single parent that wants to please the kids. And you could kind of see this, look, we're going to go to McDonald's and let's see what you put on your meal. You know what I mean? It allows the parent to try and make it a good day and then get the kid to put a smile on there. Like it almost can become kind of an objective.
No, it perpetuates the solution in parenting that parents are looking to provide in a way that's simpler than actually facing and dealing with the larger issues at play. Like to your point, I actually don't think it's a fake issue. I think it is a real issue, but it's because it's larger to what you've been talking about. Like I see it all the time. Like kids at 2 are being handed iPads and they're glued to their iPads and they're like, they're not playing outside. They're not talking to people. They don't have to do uncomfortable things.
As somebody who wrote a journal called Elite Dad.
Oh gosh, he does. He had this blog online called Elite Dads that he had 60 blog followers, and
but this was like before.
This is before.
This is
okay,
innovator, but this kind of meaningless choice is a disease. And we went to dinner the other day with somebody who's successful, only child, has just one child, and the kid literally goes, "I want a Coke," and then when the Coke comes, "I don't like it. I want a milkshake." And then mix them together and then put peanut butter from the table and then salt in it and then took a drink and said I didn't like it and threw it on the table. And the mom's like, isn't that cute? And I'm like, no, that's a monster. Like, you're creating a monster by giving them this feeling that they can choose. You're not preparing them for society, right? And I don't know where it'd be interesting to get some psychologists to come in here about what we're doing to kids by when you take them somewhere cool for them, they can put an unhappy face on the box. You know what I mean? Like, there's this weird manipulation of, it's crazy. I would say in the end, not from a societal perspective, maybe hot for some short-term business, but I think it undermines the brand long-term.
I completely agree. Okay, great answer.
High five.
Okay, next is, I feel like you're gonna have a quick answer to this one. So this one is Lacoste. They're the official sponsor of the Miami Open, and they basically did this like river cruise that had this. That was it. That's it. That was like their teaser trailer that they're the official sponsor of the Miami Open, because the Miami Open was just this past week. We put it up there. It was actually majority hot. I actually agree with this. I initially wanted to criticize them for not doing more, but I think that that's actually at the heart of what we're criticizing the like Summer Fridays for. I think that was a perfect, tasteful way of them saying that they bought the rights. Like, they're back in the 305. They were official sponsors back in the day. That's really where Lacoste became big in the US, was sponsoring a really famous tennis player, which name escapes me. It was actually created by a tennis player. And so to me, it actually ties well to the brand. I think it's tasteful and artistic in how it kind of catches that like that Kiki on the River feel.
I think Lacoste should get into golf. That's what I would say, because I think golf is open for new brands. But I thought the ad was well done.
He became the best player in the world from between 1926 and 1927 with 7 Grand Slam titles under his belt.
26. That's a cool story. And you know what? I never knew that.
Yeah.
And people should know that.
And he earned a nickname. His captain promised to buy him a crocodile leather suitcase he had been admiring in his shop window if he won his next match. Rene lost, but in tribute to his tenacity on the court and in reference to the unusual bet, the American press christened him the Crocodile. The nickname was quickly adopted throughout the tennis world, and Rene himself even encouraged it, asking his friend and stylist Robert George to sew a crocodile onto the white jacket he wore when arriving onto the court.
What a great story.
And with that, the legend began.
How many people know that story? How many of our listeners knew that story? That is a failure to tell your story.
I know.
Because that makes the brand so much cooler.
Yeah. So he ended up actually creating the Lacoste brand. And that's why I thought it was actually really tastefully done. Because it was like retro looking and it didn't scream. It was the perfect touch of we're having a moment.
I love that.
Yeah. So that is.
I think Lacoste should definitely get into an alligator luggage wear too.
All right. I got one more. So this is Glossier. Glossier launched a new perfume. They were the original kind of beauty brand that killed it on the internet. And they did a massive, large perfume brand and handed out flowers in New York. And this was news this week in the marketing and branding world. And not in my world either. To me, for brands listening to this that have the budget, this to me is I don't even want to be disparaging to Walmart, but this is like passe trash. It's overdone. It's not cool. This is not marketing news. This is like you're, showing up on Tuesday to hand out some flowers.
This is a sign that your corporate headquarters is bloated and fat.
This is a marketing agency's idea versus Liquid Death being a founder's marketing idea. That is the difference.
That's just a waste of time.
That is agency written all over it.
Yeah. And plus giving away flowers while you have fragrance. Flowers smell beautiful. Your fragrance is chemicals. Like, that's disgracias. That's just, somebody should be fired, if you ask me. It's a big nut.
It's a no. Well, that wraps up this week's Art of the Brand. The social media masterclass is now live. Mm-hmm. We're doing 100% money back guarantee. So if you would like to level up your socials with a framework that works, head to my link in bio or go to camille-moore.com. If you like this episode and you like watching this, please share it to somebody you know.
Yes, share it.
Share it.
Right? You don't have to follow it. Just share it.
Just share it.
But you can follow it if you like.
It'd be nice. But if you can just share it, that helps people know that we're showing up every week to give you our unfiltered thoughts. And I think that should at least be celebrated if you don't agree.
We should add a segment on legal insights on branding.
Oh, boy.
Since my little legal tip was good today. Till next time.
Till next time. We'll see you next week, guys. Bye.